Welcome to Late Night Story. When the world goes silent and shadows stretch longer, some stories awaken, whispered only to those still awake. So put on your headphones, turn down the lights, and let me guide you through the quiet hours. If you're listening alone, you're exactly where you need to be. If everyone can leave a comment to let me know where you are listening from in the world, don't forget to subscribe before you drift too far into the dark.
I met a drifter who walked out of the Darien Gap. Part 1, the end of safety. Folks don't often hear these words. We are so very used to the world being nice and connected. You have your cell phone signal. You have your roads, water, and your electricity. The end of safety is the last true wilderness on this planet, also known as the Darien Gap. There are no roads, power lines, charted rivers, or rescue routes. It is a section of untamed and protected land between Central and South America. You can visit, if you so chose to, but doing so means you're on your own, truly on your own. Guides you hire will carefully lead you through pre-planned routes they have established, but to do so without a guide is often a fool's errand. My name is David. I'm a traveling medic and missionary. I'm basically a pastor with first aid knowledge. When this all happened, I was working in Yavisa, Panama. This is the last city between here and Colombia, the last place north of nothingness. So, it really was a shock when someone came stumbling out of the underbrush. At first, the rest of the staff, and I was certain it was some staff member who had wandered off from the hospital compound. But she wasn't employed by the hospital, nor a volunteer. A quick call to the Parque Nacional Darien confirmed that there were no tours at the time. It was the wet season. After all, the wet season is especially inhospitable in the untamed rainforest. It's treacherous even for the most skilled guides. So, here we had a mystery woman sitting in the hospital, covered in days' worth of sweat, mud, scratches, sap stains, and stink from her travels. I questioned if she was indigenous at first, but that wasn't likely. She had Asian traits, her skin darker than most. She was far taller than any Asian woman I had ever seen before, standing about 188 centimeters tall. She was clearly built to take care of herself. Her body was well toned. She had some possessions which she wouldn't let us touch bundled up into a trench coat, as well as a pair of red-tinted glasses she refused to let us near. Her pants might have been white at some point, but now were browned and dirted by the jungle underbrush. She wore a sleeveless turtleneck and fingerless leather gloves. Her hair was brown, and she had a scar on her left cheek that looked older than the other scratches on her body. I was in charge of the initial intake for the mystery woman. Colombiana? I asked her as I did my best to clean and dry her wounds. She turned from me when I attempted to dress the small scratches. I rolled my eyes. My name is David. I'm a missionary here at the hospital. I'm trying to help. When she didn't respond, I tried again in Spanish. In Spanish, she admitted, I don't have a problem understanding you. I just don't want to be waiting around here. What struck me as odd was her accent. Not Asian or Latino in the least. She sounded almost Mediterranean. Having traveled all over as a missionary, I was pretty well versed in accents. You don't have to stay long. We just want to help you. I explained. And they want to help too? She asked, motioning to the police who stood near the doorway. I heaved a sigh. Police never make any medical situation better. The police were here because, as far as they knew, she was on the run. Panama police were not keen on letting anyone come out of Gap who didn't have papers, and she did not have papers. Could I at least get your name? I asked. I gave you mine. You're not my type, she hissed. I'm not trying to hit on you, I grumbled in frustration. I genuinely want to help. Bullshit, she growled, her light brown eyes appearing to flash red as she did so. No one genuinely wants to help. Everyone's after something. Sooner or later, they let you know what that is. I like to skip all the betrayal bullshit and just avoid getting mixed up in everyone else's problems. Most folks are out for their own goals, sure. I can tell you I'm not. I glanced at the police near the door, but I'll be honest, I can't speak for the local authorities. She gave the police the side eye and then glanced over to me, her eyes scanning over the scrubs, which were sealed in plastic, and waiting for her on a nearby table. Why don't you wash up? It seems like you've been through hell. I pointed to the shower stall in the far corner. We'll have your clothes cleaned. Then you can be on your way. Those fuckers come near me, I'm going to break their hands. She threatened as she grabbed the scrubs I'd offered. She tossed her long hair to the side, and as she did, I spotted a few small twigs which had gotten stuck in her mane of hair. My name is Kasara, by the way. Nice to meet you, I said with a weak smile as she walked off the shower. The local police turned to me, one officer approaching. She's cooperating? Minimally, I informed, you get her to confess anything? When officer asked, drugs? Is she an escaped sex slave? I chuckled. Yes, she came right out and told me her whole life story the moment I asked. I rolled my eyes. Does she look like a sex slave? The second officer shook his head. She's bad news. I can see it in her eyes. She's part of the cartel, or some kind of fugitive from the law. No one runs through the gap unless they have nothing else to lose. After some time, Kasara walked out of the shower, her hair mostly dried. Her long mane of hair made a noticeable wet spot on the paper and plastic scrub she wore. Kasara plopped her clothing, which reeked, in front of me. It's your ass if I don't get this back like new, she warned me. After we search it, the first officer said, approaching Kasara, and you, for contraband. Kasara narrowed her eyes as the two officers surrounded her. Do not touch me, she threatened. The first officer shook his head. We can do this easy or hard. What is it going to be, chica? Kasara's eyes narrowed as I watched her fist clench. So tight her knuckles went white. The officer moved forward, reaching for Kasara's arm. Kasara's eyes tracked the officer as he approached her. Once he was within range, her arm moved in a blur, wrapping around his bicep, the other on his wrist. With a sickening snap, Kasara hyperextended his elbow. I watched in shock as the bone popped up under his skin as his arm bent backwards. The officer dropped to the floor in pain. In a panic, the second officer whipped out his pistol. Stop right there, he shouted, both shaking hands trying to steady his pistol as he took aim at Kasara. Kasara spun on her heel, grabbing his wrist with an outstretched hand and forcing his hands up as she rushed towards him. She proceeded to deliver a firm hit to his liver, sending him tumbling backwards, his gun still in her hand. I froze in place, eyes wide as I had watched Kasara shut down both officers in a few blinks of an eye. The second officer was laid out on the floor, either unconscious or pretending to be. Either way, I didn't envy him. The first officer was babbling in pain as I rushed over to him. Shit. I looked over his mangled arm and called out for a doctor. As nurses and doctors rushed in, the sound of a pistol hitting the floor drew my attention. I turned and saw that Kasara had dropped the gun, grabbed her clothes, and was making her way toward the window. Wait, I called out. I said you could use the laundry, didn't I? Kasara stopped by the window, lifting her eyebrow up at me. Aren't you going to freak out and arrest me? No thanks. You acted in self-defense and warned them. I shrugged. And they're still alive. I cleared my throat. Please, I still have to address some of those injuries. They're flesh wounds. I'll be fine, Kasara growled. Flesh wounds can become infected. I reminded. Fine. Kasara took a deep inhale through her nose and turned back to me. But the second this laundry is done, I'm out of here. With that, I managed to collect her clothing, as well as pick up the second officer who had woken from his stupor. I escorted him out of the room. I locked the door behind me, my heart pounding in my chest. The second officer glared at me. Being chummy, eh? Why didn't you help? I'm a missionary. I hissed under my breath. Turn the other cheek and help people. That's all I do. What about you two? She said not to touch her. She could be a drug mule or cartel. You saw how she fought us off. I am calling for backup, the second officer whined. Listen, I shook my head. She just wants to go. Why is that so difficult? Leave the law enforcement to us, okay? The officer grabbed at her clothing, rifling through it. After a moment or two, he found a small wallet and keychain. I groaned. Certain Kasara wouldn't be too pleased to find out I let the officer do this. Not that I could have stopped him. The officer grinned as he pulled out a pair of $10 bills, which I thought was odd. Sure, some folks at shops wouldn't mind taking US currency, but it sure as hell wasn't something I'd expect a traveler from the South to have. The officer pulled out an ID card next. He examined it carefully. He gave a confused look after a few moments. What the hell is this? He inspected the ID and showed it to me. I could understand his confusion as I tried to make sense of what I was looking at. Can you read this? The officer asked me. The ID was hers. It had a photo of Kasara, some numbers written here and there. I think one had the height, as I saw, 188 centimeters, and something else which said 27. I assumed her age. The rest was all strange words and letters. The only word at the top that I could remember was Pi Epsilon Nu Theta Epsilon Sigma Lambda. I'm not even sure what language that is, let alone what alphabet. There was one last symbol in the corner. As well, it was this. All in all, the ID was beyond strange. It didn't look like any passport or ID I had ever seen, yet it appeared official. It had some numbers across the top. A holographic image of some marble bust of a regal woman's face was printed on what felt like metal. I've never seen anything like that, I remarked. The officer just took the ID, pocketed the money, and then placed everything back in the wallet. He grinned at me. Keep her in there. I'm going to run this. As he walked off, I just let an exasperated sigh out, and I headed towards a hospital laundry room. I tossed Kasara's clothing into the wash, keeping her wallet in my pocket as I walked away. The fluorescent lights flicked for a moment before they went out, which happens a lot, mainly when the dryers go off. However, not so much the washing machines. I pulled out my phone to use as a flashlight, looking around for the hallway leading to the fuse box. That's when I heard the footsteps behind me. I turned around and found nothing. I squinted into the darkness, holding my phone up. Hello? I called out. Who is there? No answer. Officer. I called out again, concerned about who or what could be wandering around in the dark. Kasara? Just at the edge of the light, I could see a pair of feet with black boots like the first officer's. Officer? Is that you? I called out. They didn't move. I took a step forward, hoping the light would illuminate further. The light moved and within the shadow, so did the feet. I swallowed hard. T, this isn't funny. I have to flip the breaker, I said softly. I turned and started walking down the hallway again. The footsteps started to follow me again. I whipped around and there, again, right at the absolute edge of my phone's light, were the same boots. I took a few steps backwards. The boots followed one step, two step, always right at the edge of my light. Oh, officer. I called out. This isn't funny. Stop this. I tried taking a few steps forward, but now it appeared as if the hallway itself was stretching away from me, taking the light with it. I stopped. The boots remained. This time I turned down the hallway and ran. I could hear the footsteps keeping pace with me. I kept running as fast as I could down the hallway. As I did, I saw the hallway turn to the right. Even though it was dark and I was panicked, I knew that was where the breaker box was. As I turned and rushed down the hallway, those ominous footsteps continued right behind me. Finally, I reached the machine room. I pushed past a heavy door, opened up the breaker, and spotted the levers that were tripped. I flipped the breakers just as I heard footsteps near the door. With my finger still on the last breaker, I heard the door creak open. The lights came back on as I turned to the doorway. Nothing, just the door. My heart hammered in my chest as I made my way to the door, peeking outside. Hello, David. The voice of the first officer caught me off guard. I jumped a bit, turning to him. Was that you? The officer narrowed his eyes on me, his arm in a sling. I saw the lights off. So I came here. What were you doing? Fixing the lights, I said, looking at his feet. They appeared to be the same boots that were following me. The officer's left hand fell heavily on my shoulder. Listen, David, he began, his breath hot and musky. Get the girl's trust and we'll treat this little aiding and abetting thing without a thought. Okay? Just keep her here. You attacked her, Officer Dash. I was cut off. Adikya, the officer said softly. Sorry, I said as I gave him a curious look. Maybe the drugs the doctors gave him for his arm were affecting him. The officer looked confused for a moment before he shook his head. I said, "I'm Officer Aguilar, understand?" "Sure," I said, clearing my throat. "But as I was saying, you attacked her." "Attacked? We did no such thing. We merely attempted a standard cavity search." Officer Aguilar grinned. "She'd likely have even enjoyed it, if she let me. I'm good with my hands." I was growing increasingly uncomfortable. "Listen, I'm going to head back to do my rounds. Before you go, Officer Aguilar showed me the strange ID removed from Casara's wallet. We've made copies, but here's the girl's ID. Put back where you found it." Officer Aguilar instructed. I sighed. "Taking the ID? Fine," I announced as I started to walk away. "Don't forget," Officer Aguilar said as I made my way down the hallway, "keep the girl here." I furrowed my brow, but all I could do was continue my rounds. As I did my routine, I would occasionally check in on Casara. The first time, I noticed that Casara was sitting on her cot, her legs crossed, doing some kind of breathing exercise. "Hey!" I called out to her. Casara opened one amber-colored eye, the light playing tricks on me, it seemed. "What?" "Clothing is in the wash. Should take a good couple of hours, okay?" I informed her. "Fine," Casara said as she closed her eyes. "Let me know when it's done." "Well, okay then." I chuckled. I turned and headed out of the room, stopping in the doorway just in time to hear Casara say something. "Thanks," Casara said under her breath. I smiled. "You're welcome." Casara didn't say another word as I left. My next check-in as my rounds continued was after dark. I wasn't too concerned to find Casara sleeping, with nothing odd to consider, and with her not trying to leap out the window again, I went back to move her clothing over to the dryer. I consider the sort of person Casara was as I moved her clothing over. It was pretty sparse clothing, and she didn't even have a packed backpack or anything with her. I wondered if that was intentional or if she lost it in the gap. I also considered whether or not Casara would even tell me if it was. Casara didn't seem the sort to open up or trust anyone. She was certainly a loner. While I was mildly paranoid about her running off in the middle of the night, I hoped that her clothing was enough to keep her in her room for the short term. Whether or not I would have any of my questions answered at the time remained a mystery. Man, do I wish that mystery remained. It was hours later as my rounds continued when things took an even more chaotic turn. It was toward the end of my shift when I heard the smoke alarms go off. My first instinct was to check the laundry room, as I thought I had set the dryer on for too long. Casara's clothing would have been dry some time ago. My thought was that perhaps the old dryers failed to click off and had started to burn clothing or start a fire. I discovered that wasn't the case in the least. As I rushed down the hallway toward the laundry room, I passed by Casara's room. There, coming from her doorway, I saw smoke. I rushed inside, and my eyes went wide at what I saw. Casara was laying on the bed, her eyes closed tightly. She was struggling, somehow, as if having a terrible dream. But that wasn't my biggest concern. Her sheets were one fire. Casara's hands raised up, and I could see fire wrapped around her arms up to her shoulders. I rushed the hallway and grabbed the fire extinguisher, dashing in and spraying the sheets down. Casara sat up as the foam covered her, and I staggered back as she let out a cry of pain. In a final burst of some sort, a ball of flame flew out of her sheets, knocking the foamed and burned fabric to the floor. Casara's eyes were wide open and appeared red in the dark light. I quickly flicked on the light and grabbed the burn kit from a nearby first aid station. I rushed to her side, pulling out everything I'd need to dress a burn wound, snapping on a pair of clean latex gloves. "It's okay," I shouted as I noted that her scrubs were burned on either hip. Steam rose off of Casara's hands, and I quickly reached for them to examine the extent of the damage. "Let go," Casara snapped. "I know it hurts." I called out, "Calm down. I need to treat your burn wounds. We'll get you something for pain." Casara's eyes darted back and forth as she looked at the burned sheets and her burned clothing. "Shit. No. It's going to be fine." I took her hand gingerly, looking it over. To my shock, there weren't any burn marks. Even as I looked over her trimmed nails, which had a rough coat of black nail polish, her skin looked unharmed. all the way up to her shoulders, though the scrubs she was wearing were singed, her skin unmarred. My eyes traveled up to Kasara's, and her reddish eyes locked on mine, a sincerity in her voice as she spoke. "I'm sorry." I was beyond bewildered as she asked her next question. "Are my clothes dry yet?" I met a drifter who walked out of the Darien Gap. Part 2, Are My Clothes Dry Yet? I had just watched the flames consume Kasara's body, and she wasn't even slightly burned, not even singed. In confusion, as if my own sanity were in question, I checked her arm for any form of burns. Still, nothing. "Hey, David, I'm fine." Kasara snapped as she ripped her hands away from me. "Don't worry about it." What was that alarm? Officer Aguilar shouted as he burst into the room. I assumed he saw the smoke. I looked over Kasara as I got to my feet, wondering how best to explain the situation without sounding insane. "I don't know, Cigarette," I suggested, out of any real explanation for fire. Officer Aguilar looked at Kasara, approaching her and looking down his nose at her. "Were you smoking, Chica?" Kasara's lip rose in a sneer at the term. I cleared my throat, hoping to calm her slightly. "The only thing I'd smoke around here is you, Puto," Kasara snapped. I heaved a sigh. At least it wasn't physical violence. I'd take what I could get. Officer Aguilar scoffed at her, turning from us. "Report any more funny business to me." "Yes, fine." I placated the officer just so he would leave. Officer Aguilar walked out of the room. "Hey, Puto," Kasara whispered to me. I sighed. "I know what that means, so please stop." Apparently ignoring the rest of what I said, Kasara continued. "My clothes, are they ready yet?" "Yes, they're likely dry," I answered, growing increasingly agitated. "Mind if I have them back?" Kasara asked. I shrugged and headed out to retrieve her clothing, hoping I didn't get any odd lightning behavior or footwear sneaking up behind me in the hallways. Luckily, retrieving Kasara's clothing went without incident as I returned to see Kasara looking over her hand curiously. It was at this point I really noticed the amount of scars along her fists and forearms. They stretched all the way up her biceps, appearing to be deep cuts moving from her fists down to her elbows. I placed her clothing on her bed. Fresh and clean, I glanced at the scars. "Are those work-related?" Kasara clenched her fists and opened it a few times. "I suppose you could say that," she said as she looked at her clothes. "You didn't wash my wallet, did you?" I shook my head, reaching into my pocket and handing her wallet back to her. "Nope, it's nice and dry." Kasara took the wallet and narrowed her eyes on me. "Feels lighter." "Shit," I thought to myself as she bounced the wallet in her hand. That cop took her cash. Kasara opened it up and looked up at me with a rather bemused expression. "Really?" "It was $20, dude. How hard up are you?" I flinched. "It wasn't me." "Well then, who the fuck was it?" Kasara asked. "The cops. One of them sifted through your wallet." I sighed, reaching into my pocket. "They didn't take anything else, did they?" Kasara snapped, panic in her voice as she checked her wallet. I had returned her ID, but she seemed unconcerned with it. Kasara sighed in relief as she pulled an old photograph out of the wallet. The photo was of a woman with dark hair and glasses. She wore a tank top and shoulder-mounted pistol harness, with an old pistol stowed in the holster. Almost honey-colored eyes were brightly smiling at whoever was taking the picture. Amusingly, the long black-haired man who was clearly taking the photo could be seen in the woman's glasses, reflected back at the camera. Both individuals were apparently happy, and I couldn't help but ask, "Family?" Kasara was silent as she sighed, slipping the photo back into her wallet. "Which one?" "Which one?" I repeated, unsure what she was asking. Which cop rifled through my shit? Was it that dude whose arm I broke, or the one I knocked on his ass? Kasara asked. I recalled the brawl between Kasara and the officers. "The second cop you knocked on his ass took it." He gave it to Officer Aguilar, the one whose elbow you dislocated, who gave it back to me. "I only dislocated his elbow." Kasara sighed. "I'm getting sloppy. You did a number on the guy." I commented, "Flattery will get you nowhere. Now scram. I gotta get dressed if I'm gonna get my money back." Kasara warned as she pulled her clothing out of a small laundry bag I provided. I shrugged and headed out of the room, giving her time to change. As I waited, I couldn't help but ask myself, who uses the word scram these days? After a few minutes, Kasara walked out of the room, now dressed in her red shirt, cream-colored jeans, and trench coat. Her heavy boots announced her presence pretty well as she rubbed her glasses against her shirt and slipped them on. Where are the cops? I shrugged. I'd assumed by the security desk. I think they've been working in shifts. With that, Kasara was marching down the hallway. I grimaced as I ran after her. So, they are police. I'm hoping we can call your last outburst self-defense. But if you're going to get into an altercation over $20, I mean I could dash. Did you take my money? Kasara asked. Well, no, I dashed. I was cut off again. Then I don't want your money, Kasara snapped. I want my money. I groaned as we finally reached the security office, where the second officer from earlier was. Well, isn't that perfect? Kasara said with a smile, a madness coming over her eyes. I didn't like that look, not one bit. I was not ready to try and get involved in a patient whose mental state wasn't all there, let alone someone as physically capable as Kasara. I wondered if now would be a good time to ask the nursing staff if they had tranquilizers on hand. The officer sat there with his feet up on the desk behind a glass partition. Upon seeing Kasara storming up to him, he got to his feet. Hey, we've still got questions for you. Kasara moved as close to the glass as she could, glaring daggers at the officer. I got one for you. Where's my money, Pendejo? The officer was caught off guard and glanced at me for some kind of help. I just shrugged. I don't know what you're talking about. The officer defended. Kasara nodded and leaned down to the little speaker hole in the glass partition, under which was a small slot for passing documents. You don't, huh? The officer shook his head. With a quick motion, Kasara's fist smashed against the thick glass partition. Despite the fact it was bulletproof, a few layers cracked. Now a web of spidered glass separated the second officer and Kasara. How about now? Kasara hissed. The officer jumped to Kasara's impressive display of strength before he reached into his pocket and tossed two $10 bills down near the slot. Smart man, Kasara said as she grabbed the money and headed toward the exit. It's been real, David, but I have shit to do. I growled to myself, remembering Officer Aguilar's request. Wait, the authorities aren't just going to let you cross into Panama. They're likely going to arrest you if you don't have the proper papers. Let them try, Kasara challenged, shaking her head as we exited the building. I've got a place to go, okay? She turned to me, her face stern once more. But thanks to the help, clean clothes are a good start to the rest of my travels. So, thanks again. I gave in at this point, shaking my head. Well, if I can't stop you, I guess I'll wish you luck. I'm not sticking around here much longer anyway. Where are you heading off to? Kasara asked. Haiti, I admitted, heading out from the Port of Balboa to Port-au-Prince in the morning. That's northward, right? Kasara thought for a moment. Technically, I laughed, but I'm not looking for company. Just trying to plan out the next leg of my journey, Kasara mused. Try to get to Canada, as far away from here as possible. Mind if I ask why? I'm doing missionary work. But why do you need to get that far up north? Family, I asked. Casera reached a magnetically locked door. I was certain this would stop her, but she just grabbed the handle and gave a hard pull. The magnet at the top released after the door flexed and complained, the door shaking as she flung it open. Kasara grunted. Let's just say, family differences. Want to talk about it? I pressed, thinking I could delay her departure a little longer, even if the door couldn't. Nah, Kasara chuckled. Not in the mood. See you later, Padre. I'm a missionary, not a priest. I corrected. Freeze, Puta! The officer from inside shouted, now sporting a rifle. Kasara looked more annoyed than anything else. Oh, now you're a big man. Put the gun down if you want to fuck around. The officer shouted, on your knees, Puta! He glanced at me. The both of you, or I'll blow your fucking heads off. I was about to comply when I could feel heat rising from behind me. Kasara's fists were clenched, and I could see heat waves rising from them. "If you don't put that toy down, you're going to regret it." The officer opened his mouth to say something, but in the next moment his head exploded. My eyes went wide as his eyes burst out his head, with the rest of his skull vaporizing into a fine mist. His body remained standing for a moment before it collapsed. From the distance, I heard the echo of a massive gunshot. Kasara's eyes were wide. "Get down!" she shouted as she grabbed me, and we ducked behind a large rock not far from the hospital as a bullet whizzed by my head. Kasara and I's back were now against the rock. "Fuck, how did they find me?" Kasara cursed under her breath. "Who found you?" I screamed, my heart hammering in my chest as I realized I was nearly shot. Kasara's head rested against the rock as she thought out loud. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." A bullet struck the rock we were hiding behind, followed by the loud crack of a gunshot a second or two afterwards. I almost got my head blown off back there. "I'm open to anything," I shouted, slipping lower behind the rock, unsure what was happening. Kasara peeked her head around the rock, looking out into the direction of the shots. Another bullet whizzed past me, striking the rock with barely a second behind a gunshot. "Valkyries," Kasara said softly, specifically, "fucking Tanya." "How the fuck can you be sure about who it—" "Wait, did you say Valkyries?" I shouted in confusion as we heard the sound of a helicopter nearby. A shrill woman's voice called out over a loudspeaker, "Surrender or face extermination. If you don't come out, I'm going to rain hellfire down on you, Kasara." I could hear the unmistakable sound of a helicopter drawing near. "Yeah, that's the Major," Kasara growled. "How the fuck did they find me? I've been off the grid for days." "The officer did run that funky ID you have on you." I offered. Kasara flinched. She saw my ID. She picked up her wallet, pulled her ID out. "Bloody hell," Kasara cursed. "Fucking forgot I even had this stupid piece of shit." With that, she tossed the ID. "Wait, don't you need that?" I called out. "I don't need anyone knowing I'm from Pentasil," Kasara said. Wind picked up. The sound of the helicopter now overhead dominated my attention. I was too terrified to even move from behind the rock, afraid my head was going to be the next to have a bullet tear it apart. Kasara stood up right in the open. "Holy shit, get down!" I shouted, trying to pull Kasara back to the ground as she looked up at the chopper overhead. It was then I realized it was right above us, and I tried to scramble to another location to get cover. "They're not going to shoot me," Kasara shouted at me. "Hey, Tanya, enough with the peace shooter." The shrill voice, I assumed the voice of Major Tanya, or whoever, called out, "Ha! Peace shooter, you never did appreciate the fine craftsmanship of the Athenian weaponsmiths." She continued to shout over a megaphone. Kasara once again didn't seem fazed by the fact someone had a rifle trained on her. "Yeah, well, you know I'm an artist. I prefer to kick ass more naturally. So why don't you come down here and take me if you want? And give up my high ground advantage? What do you take me for, Cass?" Major Tanya laughed. "Surrender? Don't make me hurt you. Shitty way to treat a sister, don't you think?" Kasara shouted. I scrambled toward the hospital before I tripped over my feet, tumbling to the ground as I turned to see a black helicopter flying overhead. Kasara's bravado quickly faded. "How's about I target this worthless man, eh?" Tanya's voice called out. Kasara's fist clenched, the heat waves rising upwards from her fist again. "Leave him out of it. He's just a missionary, a medic. An enemy combatant is an enemy combatant, Kasara. We are at war, after all. Glorious, long-awaited war." Tanya's voice called out. That's when I saw a massive rifle barrel poke out the helicopter's side door. My eyes went wide as I saw the barrel pointed right at me. Wait! "Surrender or the missionary goes to see a pathetic god," Tanya declared. I tried to scramble for some kind of cover, but I was still out in the open. With a deafening shout, Kasara roared. The air around her grew hot. So hot that I could feel it on my face from Kasara's direction. As I felt the heat, a shock wave erupted from Kasara's body. Following the shock wave was a shift in air pressure. I could feel the air grow chaotic as wind from the helicopter blades and Kasara's outburst mixed and swirled, kicking up dust and debris. The helicopter began to waver and lose altitude. "Keep this thing in the air, you idiot." I heard Tanya's frantic voice call out as the helicopter spiraled out of control. I rushed to the doors of the hospital, looking on in shock as the helicopter dropped too low and at too steep of an angle. Someone leapt from the side door of the helicopter to a building roof before rolling off and down onto the ground. The helicopter continued to spin out of control until it smashed into the tree line. Kasara was now on one knee, looking winded. I rushed toward her, unsure what was happening, but trying to see if I could help in some way. "Kasara?" I shouted, rushing to grab her. As I touched her, my hand felt as if I had just grabbed a stovepipe. Kasara pushed me away before I could even react, knocking me on my ass, her eyes glowing red. "Back off." I looked to my palm, realizing it was slightly burned. I heard Tanya's voice calling out to us, boots falling against the ground nearby. I knew there was a reason the Empress was interested in bringing you home, Royal Guard Kasara. I turned, expecting to see some crazy huge Amazon warrior taller than Kasara and twice as broad. What I did see required me to do a double take. Wearing a rather proper set of gray camouflage fatigues was a woman with short blonde hair and bright blue eyes. She looked like a waif of a thing, barely standing over 150 centimeters. A blue beret on her head with a strange symbol on it I had never seen before. It looked like an omega symbol with 3 arrows piercing it, all pointing downward. Kasara got her feet, still winded. "Oh, fuck you, Major. You're licking the new queen's boots that hard." Tanya grinned with an absolutely maddened expression, her eyes wide and pupils dilating. "It is Empress. A queen only holds dominion over a single queendom. Our new Empress shall take the world as ours. She is a conqueror. How could you possibly leave at the dawn of our finest hour?" Kasara pointed to Tanya. "You asked me that question when you're all talking like that. That's pretty much why I want no part of this warmongering bitch's craziness." Tanya giggled at first, then went into full-blown maniacal laughter, placing her gloved hand over her eyes as if to hide them. The great Royal Guard Kasara abandons her post and her family, all because she's a coward. Kasara's lip curled up in anger. "I'm not a coward because I don't want to go marching off to a war I don't agree with." Tanya's hand moved from her vicious blue eyes. "Your mother would disagree. The general is more than happy to acquiesce to the new Empress's grand design." Kasara dashed forward, fist clenched, rushing the small woman. Tanya whipped out a pistol, firing at Kasara's feet. I shouted as the bullet ricocheted off the ground in front of Kasara's feet and through one of the windows nearby. Tanya then pulled a large hunting knife from her side. Despite the tiny woman being hardly half of Kasara's size, she was prepared. She held the hunting knife under the handle of her pistol, with the pistol still at the ready. "Come at me, Cass," Tanya shouted. "I'm sure the Empress will forgive me if I return you with only a few little holes." Kasara glared at her. "You gotta hit me first, you little Hesty." Tanya took aim, but before she could, Kasara closed the distance, knocking the gun away, causing Tanya to fire the pistol off to the side. I took cover as best I could as Tanya continued to attempt to fire at Kasara, but Kasara parried the gun each time. Despite parrying the gun, Tanya would use her knife to keep Kasara at a decent enough distance, jabbing it forward just before pulling the gun on Kasara again. After the 4th shot, Tanya didn't reposition her gun, but rather lunged forward, jabbing Kasara in the thigh. "Bitch!" Kasara shouted, spinning back to kick Tanya's hand hard enough to knock the gun from it. The gun clattered to the ground, and I dove on it. Kasara then grabbed Tanya on either side of her head, eyes wide in rage. "Tell the Empress to leave me the fuck alone." Kasara shouted as she slammed Tanya's head onto the knee of her injured leg. Tanya bounced off Kasara's knee and crumbled to the ground, knocked out cold. I swallowed hard, still shaking from the encounter. Fuck. I rushed into the hospital and grabbed a field medical kit, running to Kasara. The large hunting knife was still shoved into Kasara's thigh, blood seeping from around the edges. Kasara grabbed the handle, flinching as she did so. I can't believe that Hesty stuck me. I pulled out gauze and considered the stab wound. What the fuck is a Hesty? It's a weak, tiny little housewife. Kasara growled through gritted teeth. "Insult for a warrior, okay?" Kasara screamed as she pulled a knife out her thigh. "Fucking nutjob bitch." Kasara continued a slew of profanities as she squeezed the knife wound closed. I wrapped her leg in gauze as tightly as I could. Hang on, we'll get you inside. Luckily, the knife didn't hit an artery. The blood was copious but not gushing. Fuck that. Kasara said, standing painfully, the second I had wrapped the wound. There's going to be more coming. Tanya just got here first because she was in a hello. I gotta go. You can barely walk. I shouted. Kasara then glanced over at a jeep. So, sailing to Haiti, huh? Can you drive? I growled under my breath. If you're absolutely refusing any other dash, how much for a ticket there, Padre? Kasara asked. I narrowed my eyes on her, knowing I was going to be riding the boat for free, as I was a missionary. For you, $20. I met a drifter who walked out of the Darien Gap. Part 3. Sometimes getting places early is a good thing. I hadn't planned on arriving at my port of call until tomorrow. I certainly hadn't planned on dragging a woman, a good 20 centimeters taller than me, into a jeep and driving as fast as I could to get there. I pulled the jeep up to a parking lot, leaving a voice message with the hospital staff about where their jeep was. I hoped they wouldn't be terribly upset as I slipped the keys under the jeep's carpet as I said in my instructions. You're a very polite car thief, Kasara remarked as I opened her door. I didn't steal it, I argued as I helped her to her feet. Her hand covered her injured thigh as she moved. Fuck, Kasara cursed. Tanya, you bitch. Seems like you have some practice in. You've got a shitload to explain, by the way. I informed. That's the price of the boat ride. Kasara growled. Then give me my $20 back. Maybe. I offered as I looked over the docks at the port, trying to find where Junior is. Sure enough, I spotted his boat. A mid-sized cargo boat that was offloading supplies from Jamaica, then off to Haiti with medical supplies. Kasara looked at the boat as we approached. Well, I'm not going to say I expected a cruise liner, but Kasara's eyes were drawn to the hull of the older ship. The whole thing was some shade of green and white. The white upper decks were stained with rust here and there, with paint peeling along rusted rivets near the railing. The hull appeared sturdy, but the red paint at the waterline was peeling with rust stains as the waves slapped against its sides gently at the dock. The boat was parallel to the dock, with forklifts rolling up a large ramp to push large pallets into rows at the center. There the crew worked to tie down each pallet and secure tarps over them. The boat was too small for typical containers, so it lacked its own crane, but it made it just the right size for small deliveries. This boat is going to make it there, right? Kasara asked. Well, charities have to take what they can get. I explained, heaving onto the gangway, which was a single plank with a few worn patches of grip tape applied to the bottom. As we got on board, I heard a man with a thick Haitian accent shout, Bonjour, Mazai. I smiled as I saw the boat's captain. His eyes were yellowed, and he had far more sense than teeth. His hair was short, his face wrinkled from his time at sea. That said, his shirt was well pressed, bleached, and he wore a rather stereotypical captain's hat, which was white with the insignia of Haiti on the front. He was an older Haitian man who I only knew as Junior. Junior, I shouted, smiling and grabbing his hand, hugging him shortly after the handshake. How's the water? The water's always there. So far she hasn't taken me yet. Junior laughed, looking at Kasara. Oh, who dis? Oh, Kasara. This is Junior, our ticket to Haiti, I said as I introduced Kasara to Junior. Kasara looked at Junior oddly. Junior? Junior smiled, shaking Kasara's hand heartily. Yes, I assure ya, my father, he's much older. That's why they call I'm senor, he said with a broad laugh. Kasara cleared her throat, trying to force her smile away. So where did Davy find such a woman, eh? Junior asked, looking Kasara up and down and then turning to me. Ya know there ain't no way I can satisfy this one, ya? She kill ya. Kasara recoiled. No, we aren't. No. Well, don't act so insulted. I laughed. I'm not that bad, am I? Junior grinned, leaning on a railing of the ship, his hands draped over the side. Ah, I'm a pale friend. Sometimes the ladies, they want more den looks, eh? Need a man who can go the distance, ya? He laughed, turning to Kasara and looking her up and down. And sometimes They don't need us at all, no? Kasara gave Junior a nod. Yeah, that a problem. Junior laughed. It's none of me business what y'all do with y'allself. Just don't rock my boat, eh? Junior let out a deep laugh as he walked over to me, checking the clock hanging near the wheelhouse. Y'all far too early, Davy. What's the rush, huh? I cleared my throat. We had to leave early. Oh, we? Junior asked with a smile. So now's we gonna need a ride, eh? The deal was I take your scrawny pale ass across the Gulf to Haiti. Not her brawny ass. He turned to Kasara. No offense, BB. Kasara narrowed her eyes on Junior's. No offense, as long as you don't call me BB again. Apologies, mon amour, Junior said as he bowed. How y'all like me to call ya den? Cass's fine captain, Kasara corrected. Ha ha. Junior shouted out in a deep laugh. Oh, I like this one. She called me captain. Junior shouted, placing both hands over his heart dramatically before he turned to me, treating me with respect, like she know me. He laughed, turned to her. Lucky you, ya don't. He laughed again, his tone dropping as he did. I'm sure she'll get to know you on the trip, I said with a smile. I hope not. I want Erta like me, Junior laughed. I be fueling up for the next hour, so till then find her quarters down below. Cass can take the one next to y'all. Could use another pair of hands on this old boat, y'all know? Just, don't think about pay, no? Junior said with a toothless grin. I looked at Kasara. I think she's just happy for the free ride. Aye. Junior shouted, his tone shifting immediately to a more serious and dire one. Ain't nothing in this life free. Everything costs something, he turned to Cass. Just depends what you're willing to part with, no? Kasara narrowed her eyes on Junior, as I motioned for her to follow me below deck. Gotta make sure day payment is right, ya Cass? Junior asked rhetorically as we headed below deck. Once we were moving down the steps into the tight crew quarters, I turned to Kasara. Sorry about him, he speaks his mind and is honest, it's fine. Kasara shrugged. Free ride, and he wants me to work, I guess? I'm fine with it. Besides, I gotta do something on this boat. I doubt it's got satellite TV. Be happy it's got a radio. I laughed. Kasara sighed as we got to our quarters. It was not much. Basically a closet with a bunk bolted onto the side of the hull, with some sheets and what I hope was a clean enough bed. Kasara glanced into the one next door, sighing, lovely accommodations. You could just walk further north. I reminded. Kasara glanced at her injured leg and growled, it's fine. She relented as she limped to her bed and had a seat. Guess I'll knock out for a bit. Wake me when Captain Junior needs us. I laughed as I checked my bed for any stowaways like mice or insects. True enough to his word, Junior put us to work. Kasara worked as best she could without opening up her knife wound, and I redressed her thigh daily. Each day, she was getting better. I should be happy the knife that Tanya stabbed Kasara was sharp and luckily didn't hit the bone. Still, Kasara wasn't the fastest on board, and I spent half my time keeping an eye on her, making sure she was off the leg as much as possible. Luckily, outside of checking gauges, adjusting some minor rigging that came loose, and helping to prep dinner, there was not much physically intensive work to do yet. It was going to be a long trip from Panama to Haiti. It was a dull and tedious 4-day journey to our first port, Kingston, Jamaica. From there, it was a quick refueling, reshuffling of supplies, and heading out to Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Junior was quick once we had moored up to the docks. Let's get dem skids unwrapped and ready for unloading. Faster we done, air the faster we can get to the next port. Ah? He shouted. Kasara and I weren't the only crew, and we were soon undoing cargo netting and working to find a pallet jack. Something no crew member could figure out. I growled, come on guys, it's around here somewhere. The man with the forklift loaded us in Panama. One crew member, KO'd, shouted. He was Jamaican and had the accent to match. To know where they stowed the damn jack. Kasara rolled her eyes, moving to one pallet. This shit has to go? I nodded. Yeah, it's gotta go, but I guess we're stuck until the forklift guys can free the next row out. I complained looking over the first row of pallets we had unbuckled from the cargo hold and spotting the others behind them. Can you guys climb over the pallets that we unloaded and get the next ones ready? I shouted, finding it too difficult to heave myself over. The two guys I was yelling at were skinnier than me. We gotta wait, man. Chill, the other fellow, Candace, said. I think he was from Belize, if I recall. Kasara growled. Fuck this shit, I want to get going. Kasara adjusted her gloves and grabbed at the bottom of one of the pallets where the forklifts would normally lift from. Cass, what are you doing? I asked. Working, Kasara said as she bent her knees, grunted and lifted the pallet up on its edge a few centimeters. From there, Kasara dragged the pallet backwards, towards the loading dock and right up the ramp. As she dragged it, wooden splinters and bits of the pallet snapped and popped off, but the entire thing remained mostly in one piece. Kasara gently set the pallet down and then moved to the next one. Come on, you lazy fucks. Start on the next row. I got this shit, Kasara said as she dusted off her hands and moved to the next one. Cast your leg, Dash. I tried to protest. It's fine, Kasara growled as she grabbed the next pallet by its edge. As long as these cheap-ass pallets don't fall apart. Kasara grunted as she tilted the next pallet up and began to drag it out. The two other crew members just shrugged and began to unbind the next set of pallets. After Kasara handled the first two rows of the four we had pull off, we found the pallet jack shoved into one of the pallets in the third row. I shook my head. Figures. Kasara cracked her back, then her knuckles, grabbing the pallet jack. Fucking finally, she shouted as she dropped the forks and rolled a rusty and well-used hand jack over to the two rows she had moved to the ramp. Now, let's get this shit onto the docks. After 2 hours of us unloading, the dock workers finally showed up in their forklifts to cart off the cargo we had unlocked and uncovered. Kasara and I waited on the docks as she leaned against a pylon. I sat on the locked hand cart. Well, I patted a hand cart. This made things easier. Kasara nodded. I figured it had to be buried in there somewhere. Worked in a warehouse before? I asked. Everyone needs a starting job, Kasara stated as we watched the forklifts begin loading new pallets of medical supplies into the cargo hold, having finally taken the pallets we had unloaded away. Pretty impressive, I chuckled. Doing that by hand? Meh, Kasara said with shrugged. If my leg wasn't hurt, I'd have dragged him down the ramp the whole way. Those little ridges on the ramp would have torn the shit out of the pallets, Kasara chuckled. Pissed off my old forewoman when I pulled that shit back home. Got on my case about not breaking the skids. Kasara had been pretty tight-lipped the whole journey about her origins, so I took this opportunity to pry. So, mind telling me about where you're from? Kasara's eyes were on the boat. I could see Junior surveying the loading dock area, unsure if his eyes were lingering on us or not. Nah, Kasara said as she pushed herself off the dock pylon, moving to the pallet jack and motioning for me to get off of it. Maybe later. Kasara wheeled the hand jack up the loading ramp and onto the boat, where she pushed it into the first row of pallets and locked it in place, helping the crew to secure the new payload. As I headed back on board, Junior called out to me, Davy, meet me on the bridge. We leaving for the sunset. I nodded to Junior as I climbed up the loading ramp and pulled it back onto the boat, locking it in place with Candace and KO'd. Once they locked it up, they worked on ensuring the cargo was covered in netting and tarps before we unmoored and set sail once more. I headed away from the cargo area of the boat toward the bridge, climbing up the steps until I reached the top, where Captain Junior sat in a chair near the controls. I looked over the radio, steering wheel, and navigation systems, all handled by Junior and the rest of the crew. Ya girl a power lifter? Junior asked. She used to work in a warehouse, I think. I shrugged. We're fine. Junior asked. Why do you ask? I pressed. 'Cause she's on me boat, Junior said, now serious as he leaned forward. And if I tell her any further, y'all telling me about her, y'all? I sighed, pulling up a seat near him. What's to tell? I found her in Panama. She was running from someone. They caught up to us, got into a scuffle, and we got out of there. Junior nodded. So, she ain't from Panama? I shook my head. Where she come from? Junior asked again. And don't fuck with me. Tell me the truth, yeah? I don't know. She showed up out of the Darien Gap, okay? I confessed. Junior paused, his brow furrowing as he got up and shut the door to the bridge before walking back and returned to his seat. From the gap? Junior questioned. I nodded. Not through it, but from it? Junior asked again. I'd assume through. She can't be from the Darien Gap. There's nothing there. I paused, my stomach dropping slightly, right? Junior pulled out a pack of cigarettes and bit the end of one of the cigarettes out of the pack with his teeth before he offered me one. I declined as he shrugged and lit a cigarette. I've seen things. Like, I asked, there's a difference between someone going through the gap and someone from the gap. Junior's eyes locked on mine. This person who chased ya? She a woman. Oh, course, yeah. I nodded. Military. Junior asked. My stomach sank. Why, yes. Junior grabbed me by the collar of my shirt, pulling me close to him, his yellowed eyes glaring into mine. Ya fucking tet zozo. Ya done cursed me with this fucking stowaway. Now ya got me carrying Penticillian fugitive. Fucking liar. Junior shouted at me. I ought to toss a lot of ya overboard. W8. I stammered. I didn't lie to you. Oh ho, didn't lie, no? Junior dropped me back into my chair as he got to his feet, walking around my seat. Ya hid the truth from me. That's enough to count as a lie in me book, ya? Coulda told me this woman wasn't no friend of yours. Where she come from. Instead, ya bring this curse on me vessel? What curse? I shouted. Listen, I was just helping her, okay? This crazy woman was after her, said they wanted her back. Or whatever. They killed a cop, okay? So we ran. Junior moved behind me, and I heard the distinct sound of a blade being drawn. Soon enough, Junior had a machete tapping against my shoulder. Ain't no reason for me to consider not dicing both of y'all up and tossing you overboard, except that folks already seen y'all with me. Junior said as he sat down in his chair, cigarette in one hand, machete in the other. Who are these Penticillian people you keep talking about? I asked, trying to change the topic. I promise you, I don't know shit about any of this, okay? I wasn't trying to bring you any trouble. Junior. Naive fucking bland. Junior shook his head and sighed. Hey! I shouted, glaring at him. I'm Honduran, man. If it looks like a bland, and it talks like a bland. Junior said as he pointed his machete to my chest. It's bland. My stomach sank at Junior's assertion. Y'all want to know about Penticil? Fine. I tell ya. He took a long drag from the cigarette, dropping his machete. Yeah, don't want to know shit about Penticil. Junior shouted. Why is that? I asked. 'Cause the less y'all know, the better. Junior said as he twisted and turned the machete in his lap, the light from the windows flashing off the blade and into my eyes occasionally. It's the Gap's best-kept secret. Anyone who find a city, they never come back. They say the jungle claim, but those who know, we know the truth. Junior shook his head. Y'all don't fuck around with these women, mon. Every one of them is a warrior. Like a tribal warrior? I asked, thinking of Native Americans and such. No, like military, Junior clarified. So soldiers? I reasoned. No. Junior laughed. There's a big difference between a soldier and a warrior. A soldier. They go to war and they come back. They want to live a normal life. Do they normal things get a job? Ave a family. Junior took another deep drag. A warrior? They want to go back to war. They want to make their children warriors. They want to die in battle. In what they call glory, Junior whispered. That girl y'all brought? I could see it in her eyes. She's a warrior. A killer. She's perfectly at omen blood and death. If writing else, it's a distraction, Junior explained. She's running from that. I informed, I might not know much, but the girl I heard her fighting was said something about an empress. A new one? Kasara said she didn't want any part of the war. That's why she left. Junior paused, concern growing on his face, wrinkles forming his brow as he looked at me. War? What war? Day Queen is an isolationist. Only sometimes do decent sane warriors go fighting in other nations' battles, like mercenaries for hire. Mercenaries? Who pays for warrior women to fight for them? I asked. Junior laughed. Who's fighting a group o' people who think women ought to be wearing itty scarves and marrying men? I frowned as I considered what Junior was implying. But what do y'all mean dear some new queen in a war? Junior asked, I don't know, man. This Major Tanya said the new queen wanted to be called Empress or some shit, that there would be war. I sighed. I thought she was crazy. Junior reached over to a radio, picking it up and calling out, Candace, bring me Cass. He hung up the radio without waiting for a reply. Why do you want her? I asked, my eyes drawn to the large machete in Junior's lap. 'Cause y'all weren't lying, Junior said as he got to his feet. Y'all don't know shit. I sighed in relief. But let's see what Cass is willing to tell us, Junior said as he slid the dull end of the machete under my chin, forcing me to look up at him. Yeah? I swallowed hard as Junior moved his machete back and forth under my chin, and I was thankful it was a backside. Still, it wouldn't take much to flip it over and slice me. Kasara and Candace walked in, and Kasara spotted Junior with a blade at my throat. What the fuck? Candace, leave us be, Junior said. Candace left without a word. H-Hake, Kasara. I called out. Junior turned to Kasara, pointing the machete at her. Why y'all running from Penthesil? Tell me why I oughta continue ferrying y'all two across the Gulf. Kasara heaved a sigh. Did he tell you anything? The Bland don't know shit, Junior snapped. But he know enough to get him and me killed. Now, tell me why you running. Kasara shook her head. Y'all tell me or Davy gets a EAD shorter, Junior said, tapping the machete blade on the top of my head. I damn near shit myself. I knew Junior for some time, and I knew not to antagonize him or ask him what was in his cargo, but I never imagined he would get violent if I angered him. Kasara was silent for a moment or two before she leaned against the doorway. You got any more cigarettes? Maybe a beer? Junior tossed a pack of cigarettes at Kasara before he walked around the bridge to a small fridge, pulling out a trio of small silver and red cans. Kasara took hers and popped it open. Taking a swig before Junior offered her his already lit cigarette, she lit hers from his still hot cherry and passed the cigarette back to him. Junior had a seat in his chair, motioning to Kasara. Spill it, Cass. Kasara heaved a heavy sigh. Things were the usual, okay? Then this bitch showed up. Kasara shivered. She cut through our defenses like nothing. Had a pair of women with her that they had abilities that... Kasara shook her head. Mages. They were mages. Junior sat there, shockingly unfazed as Kasara explained everything. Bitch burst into the throne room like nothing. Kasara said, I threw a punch at her and it was like hitting a brick wall. Then the queen surrendered the whole city to her. This woman Dash, Junior began but was cut off. She wasn't a woman, Kasara explained. The new Empress of Penthesil. She's a black-winged angel, and she goes by the name Ragnad. I met a drifter who walked out of the Darien Gap. Part 4, I looked between Junior and Kasara. The way she spoke so casually about it, and how accepting Junior was about the whole thing, just made me scoff. You're fucking with me, right? Junior's eyes moved me as if to inform me, sternly, to shut up. His fingers clenching around the machete also implied I should remain silent. So, Penthesil is under new management? Junior asked. Kasara nodded. Where y'all eat? Junior asked. Kasara sighed, shrugging. North? Away? I don't know. I kept walking the second I ran out of road. Kasara admitted. Junior nodded. Y'all did good. Helping me boys unloading today. Could use some extra muscle. Don't get many Penthesilian soldiers snooping around a ship, just ferrying supplies around the Gulf these days. Junior's eyes took a faraway look for a moment before he turned back to Kasara. If not looking fair work and a place ta lady I not, have a problem with it. I sighed in relief until Junior's machete was pointed to my throat once more. But Don Kaya go keeping secrets from me on me own ship again, y'all hear? Junior narrowed his eyes on me. Y'all know how many Blanco missing the Gulf? I narrowed my eyes. I'm not Dash. I was cut off as Junior's eyebrows lifted up high as he glared down at me. Enough of him. Junior hopped off a chair and headed down below deck. We shoving off soon. Best get ready to be back to sea. He turned to Kasara. Me offers on the table. till we leave Haiti. After that, you're on your own, Cass. Kasara in mockery with a serious tone. I'll think about it, Captain. Junior laughed as he walked down the hallway, his voice calling from down the steps. Captain, ha. I rubbed my temples as I tried to calm myself. I had never seen Junior that pissed before. So that's why you're running. I looked up to Kasara. But the new Empress is an angel? I mean, are you sure? You don't believe me? Kasara asked as she turned to the door. After everything you've seen so far? I paused trying to take everything in. A black angel? That's a bit apocalyptic, isn't it? I added nervously. Apocalyptic? Kasara asked. Yes, because from what you're describing it sounds like the horseman, woman, of war has descended upon Earth. I trailed off. Kasara just took a deep inhale from her cigarette and pushed the smoke from her nostrils, her eyes saying everything I needed or didn't need to hear. No. I shook my head, unsure if it was me feeling overwhelmed by everything or if I was in full-blown denial. No, this is crazy. You think that's crazy, then I doubt you're going to want to stick around for whatever happens next. Kasara hissed as she slipped through the doorway, ducking as she went. I got to my feet and headed after Kasara down to the bunks. I'm not calling you a liar or anything. I'm not even saying I don't believe you. I paused. It's more that I don't want to believe you. Is that better? Kasara ignored me as she got to her room. See you tomorrow. And she shut the door. We left port without much incident. And after I laid down in my cabin, I eventually passed out. As we traveled, I suffered strange visions in my dreams. A tall man in a top hat was wreathed in smoke standing far from me. I looked around, confused as I staggered through what looked like a graveyard. I felt ya coming, boyo. Like serendipity, the voice of the figure echoed. Smoke escaped from his lips from the end of a thick cigar. But seems it ain't me you got to fear. Count yourself lucky, he chuckled deep and low. I looked around. Who are you? At my feet was a large python that quickly slithered past me. I staggered away in shock, noticing that the snake was weaving around old tombstones and mossy grass. I was in a graveyard. Somehow, it was then I realized that the figure, wearing the top hat, was digging. What are you doing? I asked, my stomach sinking. Me job. The figure turned and I nearly fell over myself as I saw his face. His eyes were milky and white, a large cigar clenched in his rather gnarly yellow teeth. His nostrils were plugged up with some kind of cotton, and his face was covered in white-faced paint resembling a skull. There was a cross on his hat, and he fixed me with a wide and eerie grin. But ain't no excuse to look like a slob. He was dressed in a suit with a tailcoat and wore a pair of gloves, though the fingers were cut off, showing his black fingers contrasting with the white gloves. He drove the shovel into ground and took the cigar out of his mouth for a second. That's yours, y'all know. Dug it for ya, ain't just for show. He grinned wide. W.I. I stuttered. Everybody who's got a body comes to me someday, he laughed. Thought I'd keep your spot open, keeping it comfy. He approached me slowly. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't work as the tall figure loomed over me, grinning ear to ear. I said I wasn't coming, fair ya. Y'all thinking I lied. His milky eyes looked upwards. Course, I ain't the only Loa ta come ta greet y'all from the Othar side. Loa, I asked, turning to where the white-faced man was glancing. As I did, I let out a yelp of shock. Crouched behind me was a man with almost no lips covering his teeth, his eyes wide and yellow. His whole body looked to be covered in white flour, and he wore loose-fitting clothing and a pair of rubber boots. On his back was what I could only refer to as a large square funnel, a chute on one side and a crank on the other. Drool began to leak from his nearly lipless mouth. The white-faced man laughed. Watch ya doin' in this poor man's vision? He ain't deserved such a hauntin'. Man o' his position. The wide eyes of the strange humanoid creature looked me over. Tasty. The white-faced man's hot breath was on my neck as he leaned down and spoke into my ear. Lest y'all want to hop into that grave early, boy, I suggest you run. Congo 7 looking at you and thinking, yum. The creature's jaw opened and shut like a trap, clicking in a terrifying chattering noise that sounded less like a human jaw and more like a wooden instrument clattering open and shut. Without much thought, I turned to run, only to feel a set of hands on my shoulders. Grind, ya. Tasty. The monster hissed as it pulled me up and forced me towards a funnel on its back. I woke up screaming, feeling my face and shoulders, looking around frantically. I froze when I saw the face of a snake, calmly flicking its tongue at me. I froze as a large python slowly slipped from the ceiling down to the floor, slithering around me for a moment before slipping out of the room through my half-open door. I rushed out of the room, only to bump into Kasara. Kasara looked down at me. "You okay? You were screaming like a little bitch in there." Shut up. I stammered. "There was a snake in my room. You didn't see it? It was huge." Kasara looked down the hallway in either direction. Nope. I ran my hands through my hair. "I'm losing my mind." "Yeah," Kasara said, patting me on the shoulder. "We're docked by the way." Thank God. I sighed in relief as I grabbed my backpack and headed out of my small cabin. Fresh air would be a welcome relief to the insanity going on inside my head. After a hard day's work on the docks, I finally found my contact, who had arrived with her delivery trucks and a group of men to load supplies. "You must be David, yeah?" Savannah, the woman who was my local contact here, called out to me. I'd never met her before, but she seemed nice. Her hair was in short dreadlocks, her brown eyes kind as she approached me. She wore tattered work clothing, clearly not what she would wear around the hospital where she said she worked. "Savannah, right?" I confirmed as I head towards her to shake her hand. "How did you know it was me?" "You're the only white boy here," Savannah laughed, instead hugging me, and I could swear she sniffed my hair. "You stand out. My mother's Honduran, you know." I groaned. Savannah shrugged. "White by our standards," she laughed. "Come on, we'll get you all set." She trailed off as Kasara passed by her. Her nostrils flared and her eyes lingered on Kasara. "Who's this?" Kasara glanced at Savannah, Junior's new deckhand. She said as she continued on, dropping the box she was carrying onto a forklift on the dock. Savannah licked her lips, looking out of sorts for a moment. "Savannah, you okay?" I asked, "Why doesn't she come along? Maybe she can help us unload." Savannah asked. I turned to Kasara, smiling. "What do you say, Cass?" Kasara looked at the boat and then to me. "Kind of rude to leave Junior on what will be my first day, yeah?" Savannah smiled. "Junior's in port for a week, dearie. Why not come and stay at the hospital with us? I promise it'll have better beds than whatever Junior's got on his rusted bucket." "Why?" Junior called out from the docks, laughing. "No one calls a bear in a rust bucket but me." Junior laughed, hugging Savannah and kissing her on either cheek. "Savannah, BB, how have I been?" "Well enough," Savannah said, looking at Junior. "Do you mind if I borrow your new deckhand for a bit?" Junior looked Savannah over with an apprehensive grin. "Wah, fair. Feeding the hungry as always," Savannah said with a disarming smile. Junior looked Kasara up and down, then to Savannah. "Y'all think she can help y'all? Then it's up to her whether she go." Savannah turned to Kasara and me. "That seems settled then," she beamed. Junior approached Kasara. "Watch yourself. Love. Be careful, Kasara nodded. "I will, thanks, Captain." Savannah grinned at Junior. "Oh, she call ya Captain. I know." Junior gushed, his tone shifting again. "Why ya think I hire her? Ha ha ha." He laughed. I headed to one of the trucks, followed by Kasara as we loaded in. Soon enough, we were driving over bumpy roads through run-down streets and various houses either half-fixed or falling apart. Kasara looked over the state of the houses we passed. Things seemed pretty rough. I nodded. Get knocked down by a couple of hurricanes and a shitty infrastructure to start with, and it's hard for people to stand back up. It's why we bring medical supplies out here. Kasara nodded. They need builders, not medics. No one wants to help, it seems. For the most part, it's a fun hot-button issue for a month or two after the disaster. Folks donate money. Then the politicians pocket it and nothing happens. I sighed. It's depressing, but that's reality. Kasara was silent for the rest of the drive as we made our way to the hospital. Once we got there, it was more work, unloading medical supplies into the hospital. Kasara and I sat outside afterwards, drinking large bottles of water after a hard day's labor. It was amusing to me that Kasara didn't seem to complain at all about working. In fact, she seemed to enjoy it, like it kept her mind off of things. That being said, it was clear Cass's mind was wandering. "Hey, David," Kasara whispered. "What's up?" I asked if you... Before I left, Ragna had some lofty goals. Kasara admitted. Lofty how? I asked, like, world domination. Kasara was silent as she looked around. If you lived here and someone showed up and said you wouldn't ever have to worry about a roof over your head, food in your stomach or your health, and they could make good on those promises, would you give up your freedom for it? That was a heavy concept. I took a swig of water and swallowed hard. I think if someone's asking that of people, they have an ulterior motive, you know? Right. But let's say you still get all that stuff that was promised, Kasara suggested. Would you care? I sighed, thinking of places like communist China and the USSR. I think governments that do that always push someone down as a result. Sure, it all seems like a good idea, but then you have a tyrant rising up. So to give up your freedom for comfort seems like a bad deal. Kasara paused for a few more moments. Are you really free if you can't afford your next meal? Or if you have no home to live in? I gave that some pause, not sure how to answer. You can't be free if you're dead, Kasara said softly, and a whole lot of people would die if nothing is done. When you're forgotten about and no one gives a shit, can you blame someone for taking a deal, even if it seems bad? Are we talking about the people here, or you? I asked. I gave up everything, Kasara sighed, because I didn't want to be part of a plot to remove freedom, but Kasara looked around. That was before I saw all of this. It just seems like you can't be free if you don't even know when your next meal is going to come. If it's going to come. Prisoners are given food. I pointed out they aren't free. But what's the difference if the only other option was to die free or live well and just, not having a choice in what the country does? Kasara asked as she looked at folks coming and going out of the hospital. What's it matter to the average citizen? I heaved a sigh. I don't know, Kasara. I just feel like I don't know what's a choice worth. Kasara mused. Worth 1,000 meals. Savannah chuckled as she approached us. Worth plenty. Hey, Savannah. I smiled at her. Seems we're all set for the day. Seems it, Savannah said, turning to Kasara. So, when I saw you at the docks, I couldn't help but see the spirits all around you. Spirits? Kasara asked, turning to her. What spirits? Fire Loa all round. Savannah said with a smile, You don't see them? No, Kasara said simply, and I don't have much desire to. Even if some spirits might help y'all speak to your birth mother, find out why she left. Savannah asked. Kasara narrowed her eyes on Savannah. What? Savannah sat next to us, looking at the trucks as they drove off. The Loa whispered to me, told me y'all were looking for your mother's truth. She's left the mortal world, true, but she ain't gone, y'all know. Kasara's face softened as she looked Savannah over. I have some friends who can help y'all talk to, Savannah explained. Ask, some questions, maybe get an answer. Kasara scoffed. Right. Listen if I believed you at all dash. Reese, Savannah whispered. Kasara's eyes went wide. Your mother's name? It's Reese, Savannah said as she stood up. See me later, we'll talk. Kasara, you okay? I asked. Shock lingered on Kasara's face before she shook her head. She stood up as the lights around the outside of the hospital clicked on. Evening finally upon us. No, I'm not. How did she know my mother's name? Lucky guess, I shrugged. Really? Kasara snapped. That's not a common name. Before I could object, Kasara was running inside. I heaved a sigh and got to my feet, following her. Inside was Savannah, smiling to us holding a hurricane lantern. Come along, I'll show ya. We followed Savannah out of the hospital and through the streets. Before I knew it, we were walking to a church, heading through the courtyard. For some reason, I could have sworn I had seen this place before, despite never having been here. I assumed it was because many churches looked the same, but it was curious how it wasn't a church that seemed familiar, but the courtyard itself. Swear I've been here before. I whispered. Kasara was silent as her eyes were set on Savannah's lantern. Loa are special spirits, you know. They guide all sorts of folk, living and dead. Savannah explained as we walked the courtyard. Speaking to Baron Samedi, for example, can help you commune with the dead. Of course, he needs an offering of some sort. A chill ran down my spine when she spoke the name Baron Samedi, and for some reason I felt the hairs on the back of my neck rise up, recalling when the strange man smoking a cigar in my dream told me to run. I felt the urge to run kick in, but I pushed it back. We reached the side of the church, and I realized the courtyard had transitioned to a graveyard, the same graveyard from my dream. I turned around to see if someone was behind me, some creature or the tall white-faced man. Was that Baron Samedi? The white-faced man from my dream? And can you help me speak to him? Kasara asked. Yes, Savannah whispered, but I gotta offer something to the Loa. My eyes went wide as she approached the strange device. It had a large funnel at the top, a crank on the side, and a chute. Under the chute was a bucket, covered in rust. No, that wasn't rust. Sometimes they need something, Savannah whispered, her eyes shifting color as she turned to Kasara and I. White powder rose up from the device she stood in front of, collecting around her hand, holding the hurricane lantern as the light flickered. Sometimes the spirit gets hungry, ah? My eyes went wide as I recalled the cigar-smoking man's words from my dream. Better trust ya gut before you find yourself in one. I gulped, grabbing Kasara's wrist as the next words lilted through my mind. What y'all waiting fair, boyo? Run, run, run. I met a drifter who walked out of the Darien Gap. Part 5, I tried to grab Kasara and run, but she wouldn't move. Hey, Kasara, we gotta go. She said she'd show me my mother. Kasara protested. Savannah's hand was holding Kasara's other hand tightly. Despite me and Savannah pulling, Kasara didn't budge. That's right, love. I'll show ya your mother and father. The dust from the strange contraption rose up around her. All you need is to appease me, patron. Patron? Kasara asked. Her eyebrow raised as a strange contraption behind Savannah spewed out more white dust. I coughed as what came out looked like flour, but I knew the scent from my mother's cooking. Masa. That device was some kind of grinder for corn to make masa. Savannah, I think we should get going. This doesn't feel normal. As I objected, the dust wafted towards me. I could see faces within it, writhing faces, twisted in agony. Each time one opened its mouth to scream, another face pushed its way out of the former's jaw to rush towards me. I stumbled backwards as Savannah stepped away, fading into the mist. What? And leave before dinner time? That's so rude, David. You're both my patron's most important guests. What the hell is this? Kasara shouted, looking for me as she vanished into the growing fog as well. I scrambled to my feet, running towards Kasara's voice before I bumped into someone. Kasara, I called out. The figure I bumped into wasn't Kasara, but a thin man wearing nothing but a pair of canvas pants and a loose hemp shirt. He shook as he turned to me, his form represented only in the moss of dust as he reached out to me, fear in his pleading eyes. I tried to reach out to take his hand, only to watch as a funnel-shaped machine sucked his body up and pulled the man inside. He screamed, grabbing at the edge of the funnel, as he was dragged deep within it. From the other side, I saw nothing but dust fly out. I covered my nose and mouth, now unsure if this was just corn or something much more sinister floating in the air. Kasara, don't breathe it in. I called out, coughing as I did so. I heard Savannah's voice behind me. Shamed her, David. I only wanted the girl. My patron enjoys those who have powerful spirits. You're just a lil fish caught in me net air. No hard feelings, okay? I spun around, the dust swirling around Savannah as she stepped back into the thick yellow tinged clouds, laughing as she did. Her voice started to echo, the laughter coming from all around me. What the hell do you want, Savannah? I shouted as I tried to get my bearings. It ain't about what I want, David. Savannah's voice laughed. It's me, Loa. He's always in such a foul mood. So if I gotta get into his good graces, I gotta keep him fed. Always the lot for a woman, yeah? Savannah laughed madly. Fed! I shouted. What do you mean fed? Like I said, it's dinner time. Meet patron likes his food ground up fresh. Savannah continued to play coy as I tried to find my way through the blinding yellow dust. Yeah! Make a fine appetizer, fare me loa. Savannah's cackled. I spun on my heels to see through the thickening dust. The masa grinder sprung to life. It rose up off the ground. Strange black runes glowed along the surface of the grinder as a pair of straps filled up with invisible force. Shortly after, a disembodied face appeared floating before it, a black face with stark yellow stripes painted on his cheeks. A mouth full of razor-sharp teeth grinned at me as black eyes burned a hole through my heart. A long black tongue slid along his dark lips as he moved toward me. Thick dreadlocks cascading down from his head, so long they dragged on the ground. A pair of handprints appeared on the ground before me, as if there were massive arms attached to the head somewhere. If there were, I couldn't see them. Dust swirled around me as I felt an invisible force grab me on either side and start to lift me up towards a funnel. As I rose up, I saw the massive creature's mouth opening wide. Past the teeth, I could see the grinding wheels of the old corn grinder spinning inside. I struggled to escape as I was lowered, slowly, towards my unpleasant demise. Kasara burst through the dust, knocking into the floating masa grinder. I tumbled to the ground, rolling away from the horrific creature as Kasara turned on her heel, taking a low, fighting stance. Fuck! I groaned, rubbing my shoulder. The hell is that thing? Savannah's voice filled the air. Congo Savan, a man-eater to be clear. He lives off the souls of those mortals he devours. Savannah laughed as I felt the ground shaking, footsteps moving closer and closer. He's been summoned, and now he cannot go until he's had his fill. Kasara turned to me. So, this is my bad. We can point fingers later. Right now, we need to get away from whatever the hell that thing is chasing us. I faced Kasara. I think I've got an idea. Yeah, she told us. Kasara narrowed her eyes. It's finding her that's going to be tricky in this dust. The dust parted above us, and as it did I could see a massive hand hurtling toward us. Kasara grabbed me and rolled out of the way. I watched the spot where we had just escaped from flattened out in the shape of a massive palm print. Dust and sand shot into the air in a mighty plume as the hand seemingly pulled back. Hunger. I heard the disembodied voice call out as more dust obscured our vision. A bright blue glow from high above us was the only sign that something was coming. You're gonna be my feast, oh souls. Kasara and I ran for it as the ground shook behind us. Savannah's voice calling out from somewhere, seemingly nearby. You can't run from O.L. Congo Savan. He smells ya. Once you're in his dust, it's just a matter o' time. I stumbled over a gravestone, and before I knew it, I fell headfirst into an open pit, with Kasara tumbling down behind me. I groaned as I felt my fall at first broken by a hollow wooden box, and then I was forced through it by Kasara's weight. I groaned, coughing out as I realized there was no dust down here. Oh, food dash! Kasara's hand was on my mouth, as I looked up just in time to see the floating blue glow passing over us. Savannah was chanting something unintelligible and guttural nearby. As she passed by the grave, her voice grew further and further away. Kasara's eyes were glued upwards, but while she continued to look up, I glanced down. We didn't fall into any hole. It was an open grave. The wooden box was a casket. I tried to mumble, but Kasara's hand only tightened around my jaw as she glared daggers at me. I pointed down to the casket we were laying on, the one I was halfway inside. Kasara grimaced as she helped pull me up as quietly as she could. Savannah's voice now called out, seemingly desperate. Y'all got all night to feed. Don't you worry. They didn't get far. Don Chaya think about doing me in now. 'Cause who else is gonna summon ya? Huh? Kasara raised an eyebrow, and I could see an idea forming in her head. Maybe all we had to do was wait out this giant, unforeseen and terrible creation, and it would eat Savannah, though that didn't seem like the best option. What if she controls it? Would it go wild and kill everyone on the island? Kasara's brow furrowed, likely with the same thought as she tried to clamber up the steep walls of the grave. Kasara turned to me and made a motion with her hands, basically asking for a boost. I nodded in understanding, moving to my feet and lacing my fingers together to give her proper footing. She placed her hand on my shoulder, and with a grunt I pushed her up as Kasara got her hands up over the edge. She only briefly peeked over the top, searching for where Savannah's voice was emanating from. We had a good hiding spot, yes, but if Savannah's beast found us, we were sitting ducks. I didn't feel like being ground up into cornmeal, so if Kasara had a plan, I was all for it. It was then that the casket we were standing on creaked and sunk in ever so slightly. Not enough to collapse, but enough to cause me to lose my footing and fall. Once again as I fell, Kasara fell down on top of me. I slammed my face down onto the casket's bottom half. Cursing as silently as I could, all things considered, Kasara put her finger to her lips to hush me, try and look me over at the same time, likely to check if I was bleeding. If I was, I sure as shit couldn't tell. Savannah's chanting grew louder and more agitated now, but it was still far away, as if she were arguing. Maybe this issue would solve itself if we just waited her out until morning? Did we have to wait until morning? I didn't even know if this beast, monster, or spirit feared the light. Most of the time they do, but who knows? At that moment, I silently wished that I had the answers to what was chasing us. I said a silent prayer in my head for God to please provide some kind of guidance to Kasara and I to help us escape. That's when the casket beneath us began to rattle and jolt. Kasara and I both turned the head of the casket, as it appeared to have something inside of it jostling around. Okay, if someone pops out there, I'm putting them back, express style, Kasara said as she balled up her fist. Kasara moved me back and checked the cracked portion of the casket, not seeing a clear opening. The nails along the edge of the casket began to slowly rise up and out of the dry wooden planks. My eyes went wide. Kasara raised her fist, narrowing her eyes as she did. Once the nails finally pushed up and out of the wood, the casket opened. A man's body appeared as if lifted out of the casket by some unseen force. At first it looked as if he had only sat up, but soon his whole body floated out of the top of the casket. The man wore a tall top hat, white gloves, nose plugs, and a fairly well-appointed tuxedo. His arms crossed over his chest. The same strange man from my dream. The tuxedo had dust and stains across it, and as I looked at the figure carefully, I saw the gloves were stained here and there as well. On his face was a white painting of a skull, contrasting with his dark black skin. The lanky and tall figure rose up until his feet rested firmly in the casket. Then his eyes opened up with a jolt. The whites of his eyes were yellowed, his eyes glowing a soft green as he grinned to us. A mouth full of large, though yellowed and stained teeth. He gave a low chuckle, dusting himself off. Boy, oh, you be in too much of a hurry to get down here, no? I took a step back as Kasara took a step forward. He gave a hearty chuckle. The pair o' ya ain't got nothing to fear from me. And I ain't got nothing to fear, oh ye, he said as he bowed before us, removing his top hat. Can't keep it down, I whispered. That thing is still up there. Another loud laugh echoed out his lungs. Oh, El Congo-san ain't gonna hear nor see whilst I'm near ye, he said with a wide grin. I looked at him oddly, narrowing my eyes on him. Have we met before? He chuckled again, standing up straight. Last he saw me y'all were sleeping, the man said as he brought a cigar to his thin lips and took a deep inhale. Course, y'all found the grave I dug y'all while you were creeping, he said with a grin as I watched a large python slither out of the casket. It coiled around his leg and moved up his body, coming to rest around his shoulders. Kasara glared at the man. Who the fuck are you? Oh, how rude of me, he said with a laugh, placing his hat to his chest. I didn't introduce myself as y'all seen Ta be in a hurry. From between his teeth, cigar smoke hissed out and his green eyes glowed brighter. I don't think he's evil. He have killed us already, I pointed out. That's what they all say. Then a few seconds later we're about to be ground up into masa by some crazy voodoo lady. Kasara snapped. The man chuckled. Savannah's got that voodoo, it's very true. But she made her bed with a spirit most foul, a Loa that's completely unlike the likes of thou. Why are you talking in rhyme? I questioned. The man laughed heartily. I'm escort the dead all the time. Why not amuse me charges with a lil rhyme? Kasara narrowed her eyes on him. You still didn't answer us, Mr. Dead Poet Society. Who the fuck are you? I'm the solution to Savannah's terrible conspiracy. So, allow me to introduce myself I'm the one, the only. He flipped his top hat back onto his head, eyes pulsing green as he did so. Baron Samedi. So you are Baron Samedi? I reasoned. You know this dude? Kasara accused. I mean, I know of him. I cleared my throat. Then who the fuck is he? Kasara growled. The Reaper, most dignified and least hasty. Here to serve all the recently deceased in fair Haiti, he sighed. Ferryman for those who meet an untimely fate. Sadly, I have been a very busy Loa. As of late. How busy? Kasara asked as she peeked up over the grave's edge. And if you're the local Reaper, mind reaping this psycho chick who wants to feed us to that ghost? Congo said it ain't no ghost, and normally he's no threat without a host, Samedi explained. But when one's on a mortal plane, he's bound to suffer hunger pains. So, why is he stuck on the mortal plane exactly? I asked, pulling Kasara back down into the grave for fear that the seven thing will come back and find us. Samedi leaned back against the far wall of the grave, grinning wide at us. Why mortals do anything with the spirits both holy and sour? They do it because they have an unnatural thirst for power. What power is Savannah getting? Kasara asked. Samedi rubbed his fingernails on his tuxedo, glancing up at the hazy cloud above us. Savannah, she's immortal, sure, but tell me, how many years have I known Savannah for? I tried to think, having only met her recently. Not long. Junior seemed to know her, Cass pointed out. I'll tell ya this much, before you two get too tired. As far as the mortal realm is concerned, Savannah's time has expired. Samedi explained. Expired? I asked if he's a Reaper, David. He means she should have died, right? Kasara asked. Your sapphire friend hit the coffin nail on the head. Savannah's youth is wholly unnatural. She ought to be dead. Samedi ended his rhyme in a dark tone. I'm not above punching a Reaper in the face, Kasara threatened, her fist clenched. Loa or not, I ain't got no quarrel with y'all, but I do ask y'all a favor. I need y'all to end Savannah's pact with Congo 7, so I can take her. Samedi grinned at us. Wait, how we break her pact? I shouted. Contracts come and go, but no one gets something for free. Y'all gotta ask the question. Immortal life, but what's the fee? Samedi taunted, his form starting to vanish. Wait, why me? I'm a missionary. I don't deal with this kind of spiritual shit. I shouted. That's right, my fine friend. Spirits y'all don't normally see. That's because those of your faith got a powerful proxy, Samedi said before he vanished. I sighed. This is not how I saw this trip going. I totally planned for us to meet a Reaper and a spirit who wants to eat us like we're empanadas. Kasara hissed. Okay. I relented. So what do we do and how do we even know if this Reaper is on the up and up? Well, a Reaper wanting a mortal person alive past their expiration date tracks, Kasara reasoned. And personally, I'm of the opinion that we should work against the deity trying to eat us and deal with the one who isn't first. The riddles are bothering me, I whispered, thinking of Baron Samedi's last words. Nothing for free, what's the fee? So immortal life, but how? Well, Savannah's not trying to eat us, and Samedi said the spirit of Congo 7 is hungry. Bet she has to keep him fed to keep herself alive, Kasara whispered. So, we last until morning or what? I shook my head. I think she'll just move on to another victim. But the other half of the riddle has me puzzled. Which riddle? Kasara asked. The one about me not seeing spirits. I leaned against the far side of the grave, looking up as flakes of moss slowly started to drift down into our hiding spot. Shit, I don't think that's good. I mean, it's a little odd that you don't see them but claim to be religious. I know people back home who worship goddesses and claim to have spoken to them as oracles or something. Kasara shuddered. This one priestess of Eris was creepy as fuck when she communed with her goddess. Christians don't really commune with spirits. The Bible says that's when I understood Baron Samedi's last riddle. Oh, damn. Okay, what? Kasara asked as she ducked lower, the massa floating deeper into the grave. If you have a plan, now's the time. I pulled out the cross of my necklace and held it tight in my hand. My faith, God's the one who handles spirits. It's not a damn vampire, David, Kasara growled. I'm not going to get behind a plan that's pray the devil away. Got a better idea? I asked. Kasara slammed her fist into her hand. Yeah, pawn Savannah out. Then you get Savannah. I steel myself, and I'll take on Congo Savan. Wait, really? Kasara asked, shocked. Yes, really. I slowly stood up, peeking my head out of the open grave. Now, give me a boost. Kasara slowly pushed me out of the pit. You don't even know if this will work. I have faith. That's the only way it can work, I said as I offered Kasara a hand. Kasara planted her hands on the edge of the soil and pushed herself out of the hole, ignoring me. Where's Savannah? You too was almost late for dinner. I heard Savannah call out. We were getting nervous, not gonna lie. Congo Savan's been hung there in for a while now. Eat this. Kasara shouted, rushing towards Savannah's voice. I followed closely behind, trying to cover my mouth and nose with my shirt as the masa irritated my throat. I held my free hand out, thinking of prayers in my head. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. I prayed, pushing forward as I did. I heard the horrific noise of grinding metal followed by a deafening roar. The handprints appeared on the ground first, and looming out of the amber dust were the fierce glowing eyes of Congo Savan. The glowing runes pulsing with dark energy as they sized me up. It roared again, sparks shooting out of the grinding wheels behind its maw. I stood firm, holding my hand out. You don't want to be on this earthly plane, and God Almighty doesn't want you here either. I shouted, in His name, I beseech you, go, begone foul spirit. I hadn't ever performed an exorcism, but this wasn't so much casting a spirit out of someone, as it was me trying to cast a spirit out of this dimension. A spirit who, according to Baron Samedi, didn't want to be here. Congo Savans had lowered to my level, sniffing me and sneezing in my face, a blast of masa nearly blinding me. I am bound, not by my own hand. Papist asterisk asterisk. I frowned. What is your contract? Why do you persist in defiance of God Almighty? I demanded. Speak spirit. The head shook back and forth. She feed me. I empower her. That pact is set. I keep her out of reach of Baron Samedi, as long as me palate is wet. I took a step back, the masa swirling around me. You want Kasara? The one I'm with? She's the one Savannah's offering you. The giant head nodded. You can't have her. She's under my protection, I said, holding up my cross, under protection of God. Congo 7 let loose another grinding roar of sparks and masa dust. As the grinding wheels loomed toward me, I closed my eyes tightly, praying silently what I thought might be my final prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give me this day our daily bread, and forgive me my trespasses as I forgive those who trespass against me, and deliver me from evil. I felt the heat of the grinding wheels on my outstretched hand, where the cross was, as a wind passed over me. I opened my eyes, seeing my cross-bearing hand sitting within the grinding wheels. But the wheels were transparent, the ghostly things doing them no harm. Congo 7's eyes widened and it pulled back. Can't touch. A massive ghostly hand whipped through the masa and passed over me without incident. Congo 7's eyes burned bright red. Yeah, it didn't bring me nothing to eat. Foul woman. The horrific spirit screamed in a booming cry that I had to cover my ears for. The wheels gnashed and sparked as it rushed off into the dust. I spotted Kasara now, the masa dust dissipating quickly as Congo 7 ran towards her. That's where I saw Savannah behind Kasara, turning to Congo 7 as he charged at her. Yes, I did. My Loa. Here she is. I brought the two for ya. Congo 7 grabbed Savannah now, growling in anger. Ain't no supper fair me. Day under protection of greater spirits. But you, Congo 7's mouth opened wide. Ya mine woman. Savannah's eyes went wide. Wait! No, not me. Her. It's her yakini. No! Savannah screamed in terror as her body was pushed into the gaping maw of Congo Savan. I watched as her body touched the grinding wheels and a fresh burst of masa filled the air around her as she let out a blood-curdling scream. I turned away, but I still could hear the snapping, ripping, and crushing noises as well as sickening slurps and swallows. After a few moments, there was silence, and I turned, watching the yellow dust all around us slowly fall to the ground. Kasara's eyes were wide, focused on something within the dust. I moved slowly toward what she was looking at, reaching an old rusted corn mill. It wasn't the corn mill itself that bothered me, or its sudden appearance before us. It was the desiccated corpse that was stuck in the wheels up to the torso. Dark skin appeared to cover an emaciated woman's body, one arm stuck within the grinding wheels, the other reaching out for some kind of salvation. Her skin appeared dried, almost mummified and frozen on her eyeless, lipless face, with a look of abject horror. It was then I saw a gloved hand gently reach out to what had to be what was left of Savannah's hand. Taking it firmly, a hearty laugh filled the air. Savannah, there you are, now you can finally rest. There was a slight pause as Baron Samadi's voice took on a darker tone. But this ain't the end. Y'all can discover me patience ain't something y'all should test. I heard a final scream echo from Savannah's corpse before it crumbled into dust. Baron Samadi's skull-painted face turned to me. I thank ya, David. So what I say, be wary of doors which lack a proper doorway. There be places no mortal ought to tread. Dem places are only where the divine make their homestead. Kasara looked shaken, and I looked at her concerned. TH thanks, but what does that mean? Before I could get an answer, Kasara pushed past me. Hey, where you dash? Back to the boat, Kasara hissed. The more distance I put between this fucking island and me, the better. I turned to see the corn grinder had shrunk down in size, now looking like nothing more than a discarded appliance. I followed after Kasara, Samadi's voice echoing in my ears as I left the cemetery. I'd be grateful for ya, David. So for that, I give y'all one last boon. A shiver went down my spine as I paid attention to the lowest voice called to me. I'll keep a place here for ya, your own personal tomb. I met a drifter who walked out of the Darien Gap. Part 6. Kasara had made a beeline from the cemetery towards the shore, without so much as looking back once, marching forward as if she were driven by some unseen force. Between her long strides and my own panic, it was difficult to catch up with her. Cass, I shouted as I grabbed her shoulder. I don't exactly recall the events right before the sky filled my vision, but the pain on my cheek and ringing in my ears informed me that I had certainly received a right hook of some kind. Kasara stood over me, an unnatural look of regret, concern, and fear mixed on her face. Fuck. David, I'm sorry. Kasara knelt down and sat me up, brushing off my back and checking my jaw to see if she had done more than leave a mark. I was dazed, to say the least. I stammered, tried to regain the train of thought that had just been derailed by Kasara's fist. Worried. I managed to spit out. It sounded like it made sense at the time. Kasara sighed, hoisted me to my feet. I just saw some chick get ground into flour, okay? I'm a bit fucked up at the moment. Masa, I corrected. The fuck you say? Kasara said, narrowing her eyes on me. Cornmeal, I said, likely still out of my wits. You know, the corn dash, corn flour, maize, whatever. Kasara snapped. She got ground up into dust. Does it matter what kind of dust? We got visited by a friggin' spirit of death. A spirit that wanted to eat me, and some crazy bitch who made a deal with said spirit, and had no issues feeding the both of us to that thing. Kasara shouted in an absolute panic. So pardon me if I want to put as much fucking distance between myself and this fucking rock as possible. Okay, I said, slowly getting steady as we walked. I get that was fucked up. Kasara walked alongside me for a few more minutes, carrying me along with her before she turned to me. You good? I nodded, rubbing my jaw as the pain began to radiate. Yeah. Thanks, by the way, Kasara said as we had finally reached the port. For what? I asked. For stopping that spirit and turning it on Savannah, Kasara explained. I think it would have got me otherwise. Kasara cursed under her breath. So stupid. She promised you something you really wanted. I don't think anyone could blame you for falling for it. I assured her. Kasara was silent while heading back to Junior's ship. As we did, I spotted Coyote and Kendis smoking on the deck, giving Kasara a curious look as she brushed past them. I sighed. heaving up the ramp as KO got my attention with a quick nod of his head. "What's up with Cass?" KO asked. "Just..." I paused to consider the situation. I decided that maybe the truth would work best. Had a brief run-in with Baron some matey. Candace turned to me. "Don't joke about that around Junior. He'll take your fucking head, man." I frowned. Who said I was joking? And why would Junior be pissed about it? Who y'all do y'all think Junior thanks fair all our fair voyages on this hunker junk? Why y'all think he calls this ship the Baron? KO said with a chuckle. "Man praises the low of death fair not talking him yet." I gave a nod. I'll keep that in mind. Break's over. I heard Junior shouting from the bridge. "EY David, what the fuck y'all doing back on me ship? This was supposed to be me dropping, air and moving on with me route." That was the original plan. But all things considered, I wasn't keen on remaining in Haiti for any longer than I wanted to be. How's about I tag along for a little longer and get off at the next port? I asked. Junior laughed heartily. "I'm thinking y'all not going to want to be getting off at the next port called Dear Brother." "Why is that?" I shouted, heading toward the bridge. Junior moved to the railing near the bridge, looking down at me on the deck. Because we be shipping down to Cuba, Junior paused, a smile on his face. "But maybe I could use a missionary fellow like you, just in case we have a run-in with the blockade." I frowned. "The blockade?" I turned to KO and Candace, who both shook their heads at me as they extinguished their joints and headed towards the mooring lines of the ship. "No one talks about it stateside," Candace said with a chuckle, "but there's more than just sanctions between the U.S. and Cuba." KO placed his hand on my shoulder, grinning. "Ain't been stopped in months. I'm sure we're gonna be fine. Is Cass on board?" Junior shouted. Candace shouted back, "Yeah, she's down below." "Then we shipping out. Ain't letting this food rot. And I'm sure y'all all want y'all payday. Now let's get moving." Junior shouted, looking to me. "David, make yourself useful and get Cass up air so she can help the boys get us heading out." I nodded, sure. I said as I headed below deck to see where Kasara had gone off to. I made my way down the narrow stairwell and hallways, finally coming to Kasara's bunk and giving a knock on the doorframe before poking my head in. "Hey, Cass, you okay?" Kasara sat with her hands on her head, her fingers having run through her hair, and just stopped there, staring at the floor as she sat on her cot. "Not now, please. Just give me a fucking second to process this shit." I sighed. "That's all well and good, and I'd love to give you the time, but Junior's asking for you. Wants you to help Candace and KO get the ship ready to leave." Kasara paused for a second, straightened herself, and pulled her hands from her long black hair before shaking them off. "Fine. Some manual labor will take my mind off things, and the sooner we leave the better." Kasara rushed past me, bumping me out of the way as we passed in the narrow hallway. I sighed, not expecting her to give me an apology, but not taking it personally either. As I made my way up to the deck, Kasara headed towards Candace and KO. I figured I would help, but as I got to the deck, I felt Junior's strong hand on my shoulder, his breath hot in my ear as he spoke softly enough for only me to hear. "Savannah near came back to wish me farewell, and Cass be looking spooked and you looking far more confident than I expect from ya." Junior said sternly. "Ya got some explaining to do to me lotta, and only me yair." I turned to Junior, concerned as his yellowed eyes fixed firmly on me. He patted my shoulder firmly, walking past me. "Least ya could do fair day extra trip." It was only a day's travel, according to Candace. It wasn't that Cuba and Haiti were far. Hell, they were neighboring islands. It was just heading from Port-au-Prince to Antilla. That was the issue. Junior might not have been the most scrupulous sort, but he wasn't about to choose a port that wasn't well monitored to sell his goods, though his talk of the blockade felt off. So, I didn't think it was a military blockade like back in the Cold War. I said to Candace, as I did my best to help him in the galley of the small ship. Peeling and deveining shrimp for tonight's gumbo was the least I could do as Junior allowed me another day on the ship. Plus it kept me from having to explain Cass and I's tribulations in Haiti. Candace chuckled as he began chopping up chilies and onions. "You normally live in the States, yeah?" I gave him a nod. "Yes, though my mother is Honduran." "Means you don't know shit about the blockade." It's not just some laws and fines and shit, Kenda said as he slammed his knife down on the cutting board. The U.S. military don't even bother dirtying their hands with this shit, on the off chance something goes wrong. They got a mercenary navy that handles it. I frowned. Mercenary navy? Candace nodded. And you don't want to run into them, even if you're legal and legit. Their board got power, and they have nothing better to do than grab some poor bastards and toss them into Gitmo, never to be heard from again. I felt a chill up my spine at the mention of the infamous Guantanamo Bay prison. That can't be legal, like internationally. Candace laughed. Oh yeah, whole world will roll right up to the U.S. Navy and point their finger at them and say shame. Candace shook his head. Wouldn't do shit. Man, they do whatever they want, and no one notices or cares. He tossed the finely chopped up vegetables in a pot and glanced at the small pile of shrimp I had skinned. Yeah, better speed up, man. Pretty sure the only reason Junior keeps me is my gumbo, so don't fuck up for me. I nodded, speeding up my food preparation. That's when I heard a woman's voice blaring through some kind of megaphone. Unidentified vessel. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. I glanced up concerned. Shit, are there pirates out here? Candace glared, slamming his knife down into the cutting board and pulling his smock off, hanging it near the door. I wish it were pirates. KO would cut them down in a second. He turned to me. Blockade, remember? I winced. We aren't carrying anything illegal, are we? Candace turned to me. As far as I know, nope. How about you? I shook my head. Then do what you do best, Mr. Missionary, and pray. Candace said as I turned off the stove and left my half-peeled shrimp in the bowl with the rest. Kassar ran past us in the stairwell, stopping Candace and I. I'm not here. You don't know me. Never heard of me, got it? Kassara shouted as she ran past us. Candace frowned. What's wrong? Kassara looked Candace over. You know where I'm from, right? Candace gave a nod, not saying a word. Well, they want me back, Kassara said, more agitated than frantic. Candace gave an understanding nod. KO'd's quarters. There's a wall panel behind his bed that's loose. Nothing in there now. Good place to put contraband. Kassara nodded and rushed down the hall without another word. I frowned. Wait, why would Kassara's people be here? Candace shook his head. Just keep praying, he sighed. Gonna need those prayers if we want to get out of this. Once on deck, I saw the sun was setting and the sea was fairly calm. The slow roll of the boat was something I had gotten used to. What I wasn't used to was seeing a small battleship pulling up alongside us. I say small relative to a battleship. The vessel dwarfed the small rusty Baron, and I saw the battleship had several rotating cannons proudly displayed on the foredeck. The ship itself was a standard military gray, though the only markings I saw on the bow was a single stylized eye, as well as lettering that looked similar to the ones Kassara's ID had. KO was already on deck, looking as calm as possible. I looked at KO. What's going on? Inspection, KO said, glancing at me. If you have contraband, toss it. I shook my head. Nothing illegal on me. The large patrol ship was lowering a smaller boat into the water. 3 figures on it. I lost sight of it as it got close enough to our own vessel. Junior came down the steps clearly pissed. Of all the fucking days, I get this shit. He turned to me. You're a noose round me neck, Bland. I'm not a dash. I was cut off by Junior's finger in my face. Not a damn word out of ya. Ya got it? Ya shut it. They ask you your name. Ya give it. You don't lie. Unless it's to back me up. Got it? I talk you. He points at Kaode and Candace. Oh, you shut it. Kaode looked around. What about Cass? Junior turned to Kaode, glaring. Who? Kaode froze and nodded quickly. That's right. Junior hissed as he moved to the starboard side of the ship, pushing a rail open as 3 large women in blue and white uniforms climbed up and onto the deck. Junior, nice to see you on this lovely day. The first woman up, and clearly the commanding officer, commented. She was a massive woman, far taller than I was used to. Yes, Kassara included. Kassara was tall for a woman, at about 188 centimeters, but this woman stood another half head taller. The 2 other officers were about 10 centimeters shorter than her. Her hair was tied in a long blonde braid. Her eyes were amber. Her uniform certainly indicated a higher rank. The two next to her wore their hair far shorter. One clearly had her blue hair partially shaved. The one on the right's hair was jet black and cut to a short bob. Her dark eyes scanned over the deck, and us coldly. The other sailor just stood there, awaiting some kind of orders or instructions, standing at attention, almost like a doll or a robot. Her brown eyes fixed ahead, her blue hair that wasn't shaved tied to the side in a shorter braid. The uniforms they wore seemed to echo American naval uniforms, but the flags and symbols were all wrong. The crest on the shoulder wasn't a U.S. flag, but rather a blue one with black omega symbol on it, with 3 red arrows piercing it, all pointed downwards and meeting at its center. "And what a day at sea it is, Sigrid," Junior began, overly saccharine in his tone. "But I must ask why y'all holding me up. Y'all know I got business in Antilla." "I'm well aware of the business you have in Antilla, Junior," Sigrid, the commanding officer, said as she scanned the deck. "And yet I cannot help but notice you have more than your usual crew today. Business doing, so you had to take on some new members? I didn't realize charity was so profitable these days. What can I say? I am suffering from success. I had to hire a new deckhand just recently to keep up." Junior chuckled. "Good problems to have, yeah?" Sigrid nodded, turning to the black-haired sailor to her right. "Frida, check the cargo, would you?" Frida, the dark-eyed woman, gave a nod and headed to the large crates held down with straps and netting. "Hey, someone unstrapped this pile of shit." Keod walked over to Frida, working toward the cargo netting and undoing straps where he could. Candace looked around nervously before the blue-haired sailor snapped into action, rushing towards him. "You don't move unless instructed," she barked. Candace held up his hands, looking eye to eye with her. "Okay, lady, that's okay." "Calm yourself, Thea," Sigrid said with a grin. "These boys are simply nervous under the gun. Let the little worm go." Thea narrowed her eyes on Candace before returning to her post next to Sigrid. "Sigrid," Junior began, clasping his hands together, "I understand y'all miss me, but I'm on dot clock, y'all know? I got a shipment to move." Sigrid gave a nod as she eyed Junior suspiciously. "You know I can see through your lies, Haitian, right? That's why I don't lie to ya," Junior emphasized, opening his arms in a grand gesture. "It had never come to my mind. Not with you." Sigrid moved closer to Junior with a smirk. "Because you don't want a repeat of when we brought you to Gitmo, right?" For once I saw Junior's facade crack. Sigrid snickered as she scanned the deck. "New crew member, where did you pick up the run?" Sigrid asked as she pointed to me. "I wouldn't say there are new crew members a run," Junior said, clearing his throat. "Got him in Panama." "You don't say." Sigrid walked toward me. "That true?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, that's true. I was picked up in Panama." Sigrid's eyes were glaring into mine with a withering gaze. I swear I could feel an actual heat on my face as her eyes seared into mine. After the standoff, she relented, turning to Junior. "So, how many crew members are on the ship now?" "4," Junior said simply. Sigrid nodded. "A fugitive escaped Pensacola recently. She narrowly escaped one of our officers on land." "Ah, I see," Junior answered. "Well, she must be in some trouble, yeah? She's an asset more than anything else. A liability, some might say," Sigrid said as she walked along the deck. Frida returned with Keod. "Just food and medicine, all listed on the manifest." Sigrid's eyes moved to Frida. Her face still turned to Junior. "Check the crew quarters. Do y'all not trust me?" Junior said, aghast and mock shock. "Trust you? Absolutely. You not lie to me for fear of me tossing you on the rack for an hour or 3, Sigrid grinned. Again I watched Junior's resolve shudder. "But hiding the truth, skirting it? Oh, that's still in you," Sigrid chuckled. "Of course if you still had that much left in you. Junior, I'd have to set you for another session." Junior took a step back. "You're just looking for a reason to take me into Gitmo, ain't ya?" Sigrid's expression grew cold, and as it did my stomach dropped. "Oh, Junior, if I wanted to and had the time, we'd already be on the way. Trust me, I love dragging you sniveling bastards there. It's my personal playground. No one gives a fuck about the trash locked away in there." They make for wonderful playthings, but fresh meat Junior is so enticing. Sigrid's expression softened as she placed her hand on Junior's shoulder. But you're not fresh, not anymore, Junior. She gave him a shove, causing him to step back. I wondered deeply about what all this implied. Had she taken Junior to the prison in Cuba? Had she tortured him before? Sigrid's head turned to me in an instant. But there's fresh meat here now, and I'm starting to get hungry. I swallowed hard. Again. Sigrid's cold expression returned as she moved toward me, looming over me. Oh, you do look ever so fresh. She leaned over me, taking a deep inhale, her hand slipping onto my shoulder. Oh, you seem so, she shivered as she said the next word, her hand gripping my shoulder tightly. Innocent. Sigrid let the word slip through her lips as if the thought was arousing. See, then arresting an innocent man and jailing him would be wrong. Would it not? I offered, pleading to Sigrid. Sigrid's grip tightened as she took a deep inhale, as if sniffing me. It would be such a terrible thing, a terrible injustice. If someone would do that to an innocent person. I winced as her grip tightened on my shoulder before Frida popped out a stairwell, leading to the crew quarters. All clear. Sigrid's hand whipped away from my shoulder. Well, I suppose I ought to let you fine gentlemen go on with your voyage. Junior's relief was visible. Thank you, Sigrid. Sigrid scoffed, heading toward the rails. Just be happy I have no reason to drag you or your crew off this rusting bucket kicking and screaming. Sigrid paused, turning to the four of us, her eyes narrowing for a moment. For crew. Junior nodded. Sigrid grinned wickedly. Oh, Junior, you sly balls of little fox. Junior's face went pale as Sigrid rushed towards him, grabbing him by the shirt and tugging him off his feet. I almost forgot that a captain never counts himself as crew. Sigrid shouted, a madness in her eyes as she pointed to me. And you're so proud to call yourself captain, aren't you, Junior? Secure the crew members and tear the ship apart. Her gaze landed on me once more. Thea roughly grabbed me, tugging my arms behind my back before tying them. Sigrid's eyes were wild now. Get my kit from the ship, she ordered. It seems there's another crew member hiding someplace, and if no one is willing to talk, then it's time for... Sigrid paused, as if letting an aroused groan escape her lips. Interrogation.